This episode is sponsored by TherapyNotes, TherapyNotes.com. Be sure and check them out, and be sure and use the promo code Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. Over 15 years ago, when I started my private practice, I had to learn a lot, and most of it the hard way, and I don't think you need to do the same. Hi, I'm Gordon Brewer, a licensed psychotherapist, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. Join me in this journey of discovery as we have conversations with other leaders and professionals in both the mental and allied health fields. Join us as we explore both the business and clinical sides of running a private practice. I'm Gordon Brewer, and this is episode number 273 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. Glad you're with me on this journey. Glad you're listening in, and I'm looking forward to you hearing from my guest for this particular episode, Donna Jacobs. And Donna is a therapist up in Canada, and she has written a book called Becoming Your Best Self, Healing Through Self-Integration. And what she is doing in this particular episode is filling us in on how she developed the model and just some of the concepts around the model that she's come up with, called the self-integration model. And one of the things I was going back and listening to our conversation, usually my pattern here with doing the podcast episode is I will record the episode and then maybe come back later and record the intros and the outros. But one of the things that I was thinking about as I was listening to Donna again is that there's a lot of opportunity for most of us to take what we have learned through our practice, through our education, and all of those sorts of things, and put them in a way that is maybe restating maybe something that's familiar, but putting it in a different way helps people learn in a different way, or really resonates with them in a different way. I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you've heard something, but it's not necessarily new information, but it's something that you hear in a different way, and it just resonates with you differently. So I think what Donna has done here, which she's done a brilliant job of doing, is take a lot of what we know about psychology, what we know about human behavior, and what happens for us internally, and put it in a new way, and organized it in a different way, and has created her own model through this. So one of the things I hope that you learn from Donna is that this is something that you can do as well. And so just put that out there to you to kind of maybe get your wheels turning, as I like to say, of just thinking about ways in which you can continue to grow and really feed that creative side of yourself. So anyway, we'll be getting to Donna, my conversation with Donna here in just a moment. One of the things I would love for you to do, or invite you to do, is go over and check out the resources that we've got over at Practice of Therapy. I'm constantly trying to update and add to the different resources that I've got going on. One thing to pay attention to are the different communities that I've established over the last year and working on this year. We've got the general Practice of Therapy community. Used to be a Facebook group, but I moved it to the Circle platform. You can find out about that on the website. You can also find out about the membership communities that I have, which are paid memberships, and those are the Practice Launch Club, which is a group that is intended specifically for those folks that are just getting started in private practice and really kind of learning all the ins and outs of the business side of running the practice. And we meet twice a month for our office hours, and then our focus group. And Also have a lot of conversation in between times on the Circle platform. And then also we've got the focus group, which is the focus group for group therapists. And that's a group that's specifically for those therapists that have a group practice, but are also insurance-based, small group practices that are insurance-based. So you can find out about all of those things over at practiceoftherapy.com. And I invite you to go over there and check out all the resources. Also, just if you click on the resources link, you can see a lot of what we have there. I'm in the process of updating the website, and so it's probably going to have a different look here before too long. So anyway, just wanted to put that bug in your ear. So before we get to my conversation with Donna, I'd love for you to hear from our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes, and also one of the members of the Sightcraft Network.
Hey there. If we haven't met, my name is Lisa Mustard, and I'm the person behind the scenes of The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard, a podcast where I interview seasoned and knowledgeable talk therapists from the counseling world to glean valuable insights, techniques, and tools that you can apply to your practice and your life. Plus, you can also earn continuing education contact hours from some of my episodes. So to learn more about the show and get your first continuing education contact hour for free, head on over to my site, lisamustard.com.
One of the keys to a successful private practice is having the right systems and processes in place to make things run as smoothly as possible. With a system like TherapyNotes, you'll have more time to spend with what matters most, your clients. TherapyNotes is a complete practice management system with everything you need to manage patient records, schedule appointments, meet with patients remotely, create rich documentation, and bill insurance right at your fingertips. Their streamlined software is accessible wherever and whenever you need it. Your clinical records will be secure with less paperwork, which means you can give a much better quality of care. It's the EHR that Gordon uses in his practice. Be sure to check them out today by going to practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes and be sure to use the promo code GORDON to get 2 months free.
Well, hello, folks, and welcome again to the podcast. And I'm happy for you to get to know today Donna Jacobs. Welcome, Donna.
Thank you very much, Gordon.
Well, it's so glad that we connected, and I'm really interested in learning more about Donna, the clinical model that Donna developed called the self-integration model. And as I start with everyone, tell folks a little bit about yourself and how you've landed where you've landed.
Well, so yes, welcome to my life. So I've been in practice for over 40 years. And in seeing clients every day, every hour, as many of you have and are, I started to collect what I thought were parts of self. And every client that came in, brought me maybe a new part, and I started to look at my own parts. And what I developed and constructed was what I think. Now, there are lots of parts models out there, but what I think are sort of the finite parts of self. But this is just my model. There are many, as I say, parts models out there. So what I did was I started to look at different categories. And in each category, there are a few parts. And then what I did was I linked how the parts are interrelated, how the parent or filter part is important, because I use it in 4 ways. How was I parented? Because we really need to be curious about who raised us and our families of origin, right?
Right.
How do I manage myself? How do I treat myself? Do I walk, in front of the mirror and say, "Oh my God, you look like, like crap today," or "You're so fat"? How do I treat myself? And the third part is, if I have children, how do I parent my children? And the fourth is what I want to talk about today, which is how do I filter? How do I filter my reaction to these external circumstances? And I'd love to give some, examples of what people have come to me with and how they filter it to demonstrate to you that sometimes 50 to 90% of our distress is actually caused by us and our internal filter.
Yeah.
That's really what I would love to do today.
Yes. That's really fascinating to me because it sounds. What's nice is that I think I have been doing something similar, but didn't have a label for it, because I feel like that's a big part of at least the work that I do with clients. Is I think you have to understand where you came from and understand how you see the world and the filter that you run it through, and then think about how you want to change it. So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I think what folks might be interested in is just a little bit about how you decided to develop a model and pull all this together, and how that came to be.
Well, it's an interesting question, Gordon, because I'm going to be a little self-disclosing here. I come from a family of incredible, in the olden days, we'd call it neurotics. Now we sort of politely call it anxiety. And the entire family was. And I said, I don't want to live like this. I don't want to live in fear anymore. And I started to understand what's driving the fear. Was it the external circumstances, or was it me? So I started to look at those kinds of parts, and then linked the parts together, that in the 6 filters, each filter creates a reaction and a feeling in what I do practice inner child work in our inner child, in the child state. And the child state doesn't mean we're immature or, we haven't developed. What the child state means, it's the house where we house our feelings, needs, and wants. And each of the 6 filters is linked to each of these 6 feelings, these categories of 6 feelings. Mm-hmm. So I actually came upon it. Well, one was the gift of all my clients who came in with various parts. And I kept sort of saying, well, that part seems to be repeating itself. And gee, that part's really common. And that part seems to be really regular in people. And then I started to look at how each of these filter parts are linked to how we feel. Mm-hmm. And I started to do my own work. And as I said, part of it is the gift of my clients. I mean, they provided me with all this material, but it was also really starting to work on, what? I want to shed this legacy of the Jacobs family of being nervous and anxious. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of how I did it. I started to work on it. And then I developed, this is a deeper dive. I'm not going to do this today, mm-hmm. but I developed my 6-step healing. And mm-hmm. that's using the parts in order to get us out of distress, to get us to happy and healthy and enthusiastic and joyful people. So that's mm-hmm. for another podcast, Gordon.
Yeah.
which is the 6-step healing, how to use the model to deactivate us and get us out of stressful situations.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that and your vulnerability with that, because I think, one common theme, I think, for most of us in this field of mental health and, the clinical side of things, is we go into it probably with a few kind of selfish motivations of working on ourselves and drawing from that. And I think, that's one of the things that I think is really a gift that I hear in you, is recognize, okay, this is how I'm doing that. This is how I'm processing all of this internally. How can I help other people learn this as well?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's how I developed the model, because it's a working model. Once you understand the parts, then you understand how you can walk yourself through the 6-step healing to get mm-hmm. to ease and relaxation and happiness and joy and all of that.
Yeah. So one of the things that you had mentioned, and I think maybe this would be a good segue into delving into this concept of, our internal motivations, our internal thoughts, and that sort of thing are really what create the stress and anxiety and things that we have in our life. You want to say more about that?
I do. So mm-hmm. where I'll start is I'll talk about the 3. There are 6 filters. 3 are unhealthy, 3 are healthy. I'm going to talk about the unhealthy ones because this is how I want to make the point of each of these filters drives us in a way that augments our distress. It's not necessarily the external circumstance. So the first one is the critical, which we all know, the inner critic, right? So I call it the critical mm-hmm. filter. And that's the one who judges and blames and demeans, and the reaction in our child state, because that's the handshake, is it makes us feel angry and bad and self-doubting and inadequate and shamed and guilty. So we have to know that that's the handshake and the link to that. The second one is the indulgent / neglectful. I don't want to spend too much time on this. It's more complicated, but it's indulging our beliefs. It's indulging our behaviors. So any of the addictive behaviors. Yeah, I'll have another piece of cake. I'll have my 16th drink. I'll have my, right? So I'll have another affair. It's that kind of indulgence, which is behavioral. An indulgent belief, right, is only bad things happen to me. And an indulgent stance would be grandiosity. I'm the smartest person in the room. So that's the indulgent neglectful. But why do I call it neglectful? Because if we are actually being parented or parenting ourselves or parenting our children through indulgence, yeah, sure, here's another $2,000. I know you got a whole bunch of parking tickets here. Well, it's actually neglectful parenting. So indulgent / neglectful is the second one. And the third one, which is the mouthful, is catastrophizing. And that I coined by the what ifs and oh my God. Well, what if they don't call back? And what if they want to see me and fire me? And I just got a text from my boss. And oh my God, right? So those are the three: critical, indulgent, neglectful, and catastrophizing. So I thought, unless you have a question, Gordon, I thought I would dive into some examples.
Yeah. So I'm curious though, what are the three more positive parts? Yeah.
Right. That's what we need for the 6-step healing, right? So the positives are protective, nurturing, and guiding. So the protective, and I'll do this really quickly, who are we protecting ourselves against? Sometimes it might be an external force. It might be. But usually we're protecting ourselves from our internal filter. It's on our throats. It's telling us, oh, you did so poorly today. What did you say? Donna, what did you say in that podcast? That was ridiculous, right? That would be the critical. What are we protecting ourselves from? Our unhealthy filters. Once we get that off our throats, then we move in with the nurturer. And the nurturer is the simple one that a lot of people don't get because a lot of people didn't have it, right? And it's that warm pair of arms that encircles us and says, hey, sweetheart, I got this. It validates, it reassures, it comforts, it soothes. That's the job of the nurturing. And the job of the guide, I call the guide the therapist. Because what does the guide do? It gives perspective. It helps us understand why we are getting triggered. What led to it? Was it something that we learned in our family of origin? Is it based upon, some sort of trigger that we had or some adaptation that we used? So once we get through those three, then we move to the adult, which is that middle part of the model that moves it forward.
Yeah.
Moves it forward. It does something more concrete. Most people, when they get activated, what do, Gordon? They move to the quick fix. Well, I'm going to fix it. And I'm saying, oh my gosh, please let's not remove all of that emotional therapy that we need to give ourselves. And that's in those parts that I just mentioned.
Right. Yeah. So how do we get there with thinking about our clients and thinking about even ourselves?
Okay, so let me give you a few examples of what people do and say. Let me give you an example. A client comes to me and she comes to session and she's furious because she's a couple of minutes late. Why is she furious? Because she tried to get out of her driveway and a truck was blocking her driveway. I understand that that's aggravating and annoying. I'm going to be late. But what I have people do is on a scale from 0 to 10, before we filter it, how negative was that or how reactive was that situation? I would say a truck blocking our driveway and we're going to be a few minutes late is maybe a 2 on a scale from 0 to 10. Maybe a 2. But she came in so fired up, she had raised herself to a 10. So if it's a 2 in reality, and by the time she filters it, it's a 10, I say 10 to 8 to 2 is 80% of her anger and her vitriolic, language and her upset and her annoyance and her irritation is actually caused by her. Because if she had gone through the 6 steps and brought on the protective and brought on the nurturing and brought on the guide, she probably would have deactivated herself and sat and said, it's okay. Yes, I know this is really, really, really anxiety producing for you. And this is so annoying that you're being blocked in. And you know what, sweetheart? It's okay. This is how we talk to ourselves. and maybe say, we know you don't like to be late. And we know that maybe you were late a couple of times and you don't want Donna to get the impression that therapy is not important. You know what? When you get there, you'll explain it to her, right? And your family of origin made you feel that being late was the worst thing because it was so disrespectful. Well, in this context, it's going to be okay. If she had done that, she would have come in and said, you know what, I'm really sorry. I'm 3.5 minutes late. There was a truck blocking my driveway. It was really annoying to me, but I calmed myself down and I'm here now. As opposed to her coming in and it was, 20 minutes of the session, she was spewing this. My point I want to make is that she caused that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So can I give you another example about how that was the critical? I can't believe what he did. He's parked in front of my driveway. What an idiot. That was the critical.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give you an example of how the indulgent might work. Lot of rain. Client calls me and I see that my client and he or she says, my roof is leaking. Now, a leaky roof is a problem because you don't know how much damage it is. You don't know how it's going to stress the walls and the roof and the integrity of the house. Got that. Roof leaking, I'll give that even a 4 on its own. Because a leaking roof can cause damage. The indulgent belief would be, it's been raining for 2 days and I'm the only one whose roof is leaking. Only bad things happen to me. Well, that's pretty indulgent, right? So when you indulge that, it becomes a 7, 8, 9. When really it's a 4. So again, in this example, I say leaking roof may be objectively a 4 on 10. By the time we filter it through that indulgence, we're in self-pity, we're in victimization, poor me and nobody else. That's an indulgent belief.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. And I can give another one on the catastrophizing, but I'll leave that up to you.
Okay. Yeah. So, I love this. You know what it reminds me of is something that I've done with my clients and is helping them move from an external locus of control to an internal locus of control. And so, you want to say something about how you would do that with this model.
So this is empowering people. The basis of my model is we actually possess all the necessary parts to deactivate us. But when we forget our parts, right, and we're only stuck on the unhealthy side of the model with the critical, indulgent, neglectful, and catastrophizing, it's not going to end up well, right? So the idea is that, yes, like life, by the time, like I think of my clients who are raising 3 kids, it's COVID, right? They're online learning. I would say by 7:30 in the morning, they have had 24 external events affect them. This kid won't get online. They're late for work. They can't find their AirPods for their online learning. All of this is. So the idea is that when it is the same thing as external and internal locus of control, but I want to empower people by telling them that they already possess the parts if they want to use them. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about, when people are, kind of emotionally flooded or emotionally activated in the different parts of teaching them the skills of, okay, how do they ground themselves and be able to, I need to be more nurturing to myself. I need to be,
absolutely.
Those kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I have people do is as soon as they get to the place where they're feeling activated in something, be it anger, be it irritation, be it fear, be it anxiety, be it depression, be it whatever it is, right? Let's acknowledge that first, that I call it, our little kid inside of us needs help. He, she, they are activated. It doesn't feel good. So what I have them do, as soon as they're feeling bad inside, I feel it in my gut. Other people feel it in their jaw, or their chests, or their heads. I feel it in my gut. As soon as my gut goes off, I pull the alarm. What do I mean by what pull the alarm? What do you mean? I am pulling the alarm to wake up my healthy parts. Protective, nurturing, guiding, and adult. Those are the 4 healing agents, right? Those are my parts that are healthy.
Mm-hmm.
They're in us all the time. And I want people to know that protective, nurturing, guiding, and adult live within us all the time. But you know what? Sometimes they're watching Netflix. Sometimes these parts are having a margarita. Sometimes they're lying on the beach or reading a book. They're there, but they're not always active until we pull the alarm. The idea of pulling the alarm is to activate these 4 parts to say, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, Donna needs us. She's in trouble. So they get ready. Right? So that's my first step. The second step is, can we identify which of the unhealthy filters is on board? So if I'm in, what if, oh my God, I'm in catastrophizing.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done. Then we move to the protective. Who's the protective protecting us from? Our own part, our own catastrophizer, to get it off our throat and leave Donna alone. Leave her alone. She's all upset because you're chattering to her about all this stuff about why she should be so anxious. Come with me. Let's leave her alone. Then the nurturing comes in, puts that pair of arms around me and says, Donna, that was really, really anxiety producing. I know you feel anxious. I know you're worried about that, right? It's going to be okay. We reassure only when we can really reassure. And we comfort and soothe. So whatever we have to do in that, we comfort and soothe. Then we move to the guide, right? Donna, why were you so anxious? Oh, I remember when I was a child and this happened with my father and he got so anxious. And I remember that this was one of the things that I really got anxious about because he got anxious about it. So we start to do the therapy work to understand what the associations are, what the links are and the triggers from the past. And then the adult comes in, which is step 6 of the 6-step healing, and moves it forward. What might I do? Might I review my work? Might I call a friend? Might I go make myself a cup of tea? What's going to move it forward?
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. This is fun stuff. Just thinking about how we move, how I guess in many ways, some metaphors of giving people the language for what is going on internally for them and being able to grasp onto something, to be able to ground themselves and then be able to make that movement. I know I tell my patients, my clients all the time, it's important to understand why you feel like you feel and how you got there, but it really doesn't create the change. So really being able to integrate that adult parts of ourselves is really where the change can occur.
Absolutely. And the thing I want to add to that, Gordon, the adult part will move it forward and create change. As I said before, a lot of people move from, I'm activated. Oh, okay, I'm going to fix it. And I'm saying, okay, before we fix it, can we do that emotional work so that our child state can start to exhale, and then we'll move it forward. Because how many clients want to just fix it?
Right.
I see a lot of couples, and often in a hetero couple, right? The she of the couple will come in and say, he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand my feelings. I just want him to validate me and be in my court and have empathy, but he wants to fix it. My joke is, I'll come back from visiting my mother who's in a long-term care facility with dementia. And I'll come home and I'm upset because it's been a bad visit. It's really upsetting to me. And I'll come home and I'll talk to my husband, who's a doll. He's a fabulous guy. And he'll say, well, why don't you visit her less? I giggle. I say, okay, hold on a minute. I'll figure out what I need to do. Thank you very much. I'm a big girl. I will find out how to fix it. But I really need to work through the emotion of it. I'm really, really upset about it.
Right. Yeah. It's a matter of understanding rather than fixing.
The fixing, if I need fixing, I'll ask somebody, but pretty much I'll know how to fix it. But I want the emotional unfolding, right?
Right. Yeah. The other thing I would add to that, Donna, is helping people learn how to sit with the discomfort of negative emotions. That's I think our go-to is we want to eradicate the negative emotions or the stuff that is uncomfortable, and just not to get too far off on a tangent of the brain function of it, but that part of our brain, the amygdala, that's there to protect us and keep us safe, can't distinguish between what is dangerous and what is difficult. And I liked going back to what you said earlier about the scaling question of, okay, my brain's saying that this is a 10 and we're emergency danger. But in reality, when you look at it, it's really only a 2 or a 3. And so being able to understand that.
I love that distinction of dangerous versus difficult, right? I mean, we all want to help our clients tolerate the discomfort, right?
Yeah.
But I love that distinction. Is it dangerous? Because some are 10, right? There's a tornado coming and it just lifted up the house. That's a 10.
Yes.
Right? Difficult is what we live with most of the time.
Right.
I love that distinction.
The roof's leaking. That's difficult. It's not a 10 with the tornado ripping the roof off. It's different.
Right. Exactly. That would be a 10.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Well, Donna, I need to be respectful of your time, and I'm really glad that we had this conversation. Tell folks about your course and your book and how they can get in touch with you and all the stuff that you've got.
That's great. Thank you. So my book is called Becoming Your Best Self by Donna Jacob, and it's available online. It's available on Amazon. So that will describe the model. It will go in depth into the model. It will talk about family of origin, our adaptations, triggers, and then it will talk about the 6-step healing, how to deactivate ourselves and our clients. Mm-hmm. And then what I have done, I've spent the last 6 months videotaping my online course, which will be available on Udemy in probably a month or so. Mm-hmm. So any information about it, if you're interested in the model or more information about it, the course is quite comprehensive. And you can reach me at donnajacob.ca and all of the information will be there.
Awesome. We'll have links here in the show notes so that people find that easily. Well, Donna, it's been great to get to know you, and I really enjoy these kinds of conversations, and I would encourage folks to go find you and check you out. Well, again, a big thanks to Donna for joining me on the podcast. I really consider it a privilege to be able to have the conversations that I get to have with literally therapists and providers from across the world. And it's fun to find people that have the energy and the enthusiasm about what they do, like Donna does, even though she's been doing it a long time. And I love the fact that she's taken her experience and her knowledge and put it into her own model. And if I could say one thing, I hope that maybe this inspires you to think about maybe someday creating your own model of therapy just based on your own experiences. Because I think with what we do, there's thousands of different ways to do it. And I think each of us has to kind of find what speaks to us individually as people, but also what resonates with us and how we like to help people. So again, kudos to Donna for putting this model together. And be sure and check out her book, Becoming Your Best Self, Healing Through Self-Integration. And you can find out more about Donna by going to just donnajacobs.ca. And we've got links here in the show notes and the show summary. And also be sure and check out the resources we've got at Practice of Therapy. As I mentioned earlier, we're constantly adding to those. And I'd also love to start a conversation with you through our different communities that we've got going. You can check those out and find out more about them at practiceoftherapy.com. And again, big thanks to our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes. They are the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. They're who I use in my practice and couldn't do without them. And also just totally impressed with all the things and things that they're adding to the platform. They're just making it more and more accessible to therapists, but also just making our life easier through more different ways to do everything in one place. So be sure and check them out, practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes, and use that promo code Gordon, just GORDON, to try them out for 2 months for free. So take care, folks. Looking forward to some more great episodes here in the future. I know I've got several new guests lined up and looking forward to you hearing from them. And thanks again for joining me in this journey. You've been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. You can find out more about the other great podcasts in the network by visiting psychcraftnetwork.com. And if you haven't done so already, please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com and get your free private practice startup guide, along with a lot of other great resources and webinars and free things just by visiting. Also, be sure to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcasts. This podcast is intended to be educational in purpose and is not intended to give legal, accounting, or counseling advice. If you need a professional, find the right person for that.